The first time I realized my family had already replaced me, it wasn't during an argument or a dramatic fight. It was at 6:40 in the morning on a cold February weekday when I opened my phone and saw a photo that wasn't meant for me. It was posted in the family group chat, a photo of my childhood home in Hartford, Connecticut, snow-dusted steps, warm lights glowing behind the windows, my parents, my younger brother, my aunt, and a woman I didn't recognize standing between them, her hand resting comfortably on my mother's arm. The caption read, "So grateful to have everyone together again. Fresh starts." Everyone. My name is Evelyn Moore. I'm 34 years old. And until that moment, I had believed I was still part of my family, even if I was no longer central to it. I was wrong. I stared at the photo longer than I should have, my coffee growing cold on the counter. No one had told me about a gathering. No one had mentioned a visitor. No one had explained why a stranger was standing where I used to stand. The woman looked calm, confident, like someone who belonged. I scrolled up through the chat. Messages about dinner plans. Jokes. Compliments directed at her. "Claire is such a blessing. She just fits right in. God really sends people when you least expect it." Claire. I read the name 3 times, my stomach tightening. My mother had always been careful with names. She used them deliberately, like tools. The fact that she had introduced someone new to the family, welcomed her so quickly without mentioning her to me, was not an oversight. It was a decision. My phone buzzed. My brother Daniel. "Did you see the photo?" "Yes," I replied. A pause. Then Mom said she'd tell you later. "Didn't want to upset you." I almost laughed. "Tell me what I typed." Another pause, longer this time. "She's helping Dad with the foundation stuff. And with Mom, since you moved away." Moved away? I hadn't moved away. I had relocated 3 hours south to New Haven for work after my parents insisted they didn't need my help anymore. After they said it was time I focused on my own life instead of hovering around theirs. I had listened. That was my mistake. "What foundation stuff?" I asked. The typing dots appeared, then disappeared. "Just paperwork, don't worry about it." I set the phone down slowly. For the past 9 years, I had been the one managing my parents' charitable foundation, filing reports, handling compliance, making sure donations went where they were supposed to go, protecting my father's reputation as a respected local philanthropist. I had done it quietly, carefully, without ever asking for recognition. Now someone named Claire fit right in. By noon, I couldn't concentrate at work. I sat at my desk in the nonprofit law firm where I specialized in regulatory compliance, staring at contracts without reading them. A familiar pressure built behind my eyes. That afternoon, my mother finally called. "Evelyn," she said brightly, as if nothing were wrong. "Did you see the photo? Isn't Claire lovely?" "Who is she?" I asked. A small pause, too small to be accidental. "She's someone your father and I met through church. She's been such a help lately." With what I pressed. "Oh, everything," my mother replied. "Your father's health, the foundation, just being present." The word landed like a slap. Present. I wasn't aware I was absent, I said. My mother sighed softly, the sound she used when she wanted to sound patient while dismissing me. "Evelyn, you have your own life now. We didn't want to burden you." I closed my eyes. "You replaced me," I said. "That's not fair," she replied quickly. "No one replaced you." "Then why does she have access to my work?" I asked. Another pause, this one longer. "She's helping us transition," my mother said. "It's temporary." Temporary. I had heard that word before. Temporary things in my family had a habit of becoming permanent the moment I stopped fighting them. "Did you give her access to the foundation accounts?" I asked. My mother didn't answer right away. "Mom," I said. "Yes," she admitted. "But it's fine. She's very trustworthy." Trustworthy. I felt something cold settle in my chest. That night, alone in my apartment, I opened my laptop and logged into the foundation's secure portal. Or tried to. Access denied. I tried again. Same message. I sat back slowly, my pulse steady but sharp. They hadn't just replaced me. They had locked me out. And whatever Claire was, helper or not, she now stood between my family and the truth they had never wanted to acknowledge. That I was the one who had been holding everything together. And without me, things were about to unravel in ways none of them could control. I didn't confront them right away. Not because I was afraid, but because instinct told me to wait. In my line of work, reaction without information was how people destroyed themselves. I had spent years cleaning up after organizations that panicked instead of paying attention. I wasn't going to become one of them. The next morning, I called in sick and drove north. Hartford looked the same as it always had. Old brick buildings, bare trees clawing at the gray sky, familiar streets that once made me feel anchored and now felt like evidence. I parked across from my parents' house instead of pulling into the driveway. I watched for a few minutes before getting out of the car. At 9:15, the front door opened. Claire stepped out, She was younger than I expected. Early 30s maybe, well-dressed but not flashy, practical coat, confident posture. She moved like someone who had been told she belonged there and believed it. My mother followed her out, smiling warmly, touching her elbow as they spoke. The intimacy of the gesture made my throat tighten. Then my father appeared slower, leaning slightly on his cane. Claire immediately turned back to him, adjusting her pace to match his. I had never done that consciously. I had simply known. I waited until Claire left before approaching the house. My mother answered the door herself. Her smile faltered when she saw me. "Evelyn," she said, surprise and something else flickering behind her eyes. "You didn't say you were coming." "I didn't think I needed permission," I replied. She stepped aside reluctantly. Inside the house smelled the same, lemon cleaner, old books, familiar and alien all at once. My father sat in his chair by the window. He looked up slowly. "Evie," he said, "you're here." "Yes," I said, "I am." We exchanged awkward hugs. My mother busied herself in the kitchen, clattering dishes too loudly. "I tried to log into the foundation portal," I said finally. "My access has been removed." My father shifted uncomfortably. "Your mother thought it would be simpler." "Simpler for whom?" I asked. "For everyone," my mother said sharply from the doorway. "You've been distant." "I moved 3 hours away," I said. "Not to another planet." She crossed her arms. "You made it clear you wanted independence." "I wanted balance," I replied. "There's a difference." Silence settled heavily. "Who is Claire?" I asked again. My father spoke this time. "She's been helping us organize things. Your mother felt overwhelmed." "And she didn't call me," I said. My mother met my gaze, something hard in her eyes now. "Because every time we asked for help, you made it feel like we were incompetent." I stared at her. "I took responsibility," I said, "because you asked me to." "You always took over," she snapped. "Claire doesn't do that. She supports without controlling." The words stung more than I expected. "So I'm a problem," I said quietly. "No," my father said quickly. "That's not what she means." But my mother didn't correct him. "Does Claire know about the compliance issues from 2 years ago?" I asked. My father frowned. "What issues?" My mother froze. I felt my spine straighten. "The late filings," I continued. "The donor restrictions that were misapplied. The penalties I negotiated down before they became public." My father looked at my mother confused. "You said everything was handled." "It was," I said, "by me." My mother's voice sharpened. "We don't need to relive old problems." "You do," I replied, "if you've handed my role to someone who doesn't know they exist." The room felt suddenly smaller. My father cleared his throat. "Claire said she could modernize things, make them cleaner." "Cleaner." That word again. I nodded slowly. "Then you should know," I said calmly, "that the foundation is due for a review this year. And if anything is misrepresented intentionally or not, the consequences won't be small." My mother's face paled slightly. "You're exaggerating," she said. "No," I replied. "I'm warning you." She opened her mouth to argue, then stopped. For the first time, I saw doubt flicker across her expression. That night, back in my car, I sat for several minutes without turning the engine on. My hands rested calmly on the steering wheel. They believed Claire was a fresh start. They had no idea she was stepping into a system held together by threads only I knew how to see. And I was done pulling them tight. I didn't warn them again after that visit. Warnings only work when people still believe you're on their side. The moment my mother decided Claire was easier than me, I stopped being family and became a liability in her mind. That realization was oddly freeing. Back in New Haven, I returned to my routines with deliberate care. Work during the day, long walks at night, no calls home, no checking the family chat. Silence became my shield. 3 days later, the email arrived. Subject: Foundation Documentation Request, Sender, Northeastern Charitable Compliance Office. I read it once, then again, then I smiled. The foundation was being selected for a routine review. Randomized. Standard. Nothing to worry about according to anyone who didn't understand how fragile my parents' operation actually was. They wanted updated bylaws, donor correspondence, restricted fund usage reports, and evidence of corrective action taken after prior discrepancies. Prior discrepancies. The ones I had fixed quietly, the ones my parents barely understood, the ones Claire absolutely did not know existed. I forwarded the email to my personal archive and did nothing else. Within an hour, my mother called. "Did you get an email from compliance?" she asked, her voice tight. "Yes," I replied calmly. "Well," she pressed, "what does it mean?" "It means exactly what it says," I answered. "They want documentation." "You handled this before," she said. "You know what they need." I closed my eyes slowly. "You removed my access," I said. "Remember." A sharp inhale on the other end. "Well, yes," she said, "but this is different. This affects all of us." "No," I corrected. "It affects the foundation, which you decided Claire could manage." Silence. "I need you to be reasonable," my mother said finally. "I am," I replied. "I'm respecting the structure you chose." Her voice hardened. "You're being petty." No, I said, I'm being consistent. She hung up on me. That evening, Daniel called. Mom's freaking out, he said without preamble. She says you're refusing to help. I'm refusing to interfere, I replied. What's the difference, he asked. The difference, I said patiently, is that interference creates liability. He groaned. You always talk like that, and you always benefit from it, I said. He was quiet for a moment. Claire says she's got it under control. I smiled to myself. Of course she does. 2 days later, the second email arrived. This one flagged missing documents from the previous fiscal year. Not errors, absences. My phone rang immediately. It was my father. Evie, he said, sounding tired. We're confused. I warned you, I said gently. Claire says some files were never uploaded, he continued. That there are gaps? Yes, I said. Because I kept certain records offline until issues were resolved. Why, he asked. To protect you, I replied. He exhaled shakily. She didn't know that. No, I said. She wouldn't. That night, I opened my laptop and reviewed my archive. Years of careful work sat there, clean and thorough. I hadn't deleted anything. I hadn't hidden it. I had simply stopped volunteering it. That was the difference between sabotage and withdrawal. And the system could feel it. The following week, my mother drove to New Haven unannounced. She stood in my doorway, coat still on, eyes sharp with a mix of fear and fury. You did this, she said. I didn't, I replied. I stopped preventing it. She stepped inside without being invited. You're punishing us for moving on. I moved on, I said. You replaced me. She waved her hand dismissively. Claire is just support. Then why does she have authority, I asked. She makes us feel calm, my mother snapped. I looked at her steadily. Calm isn't compliance. That landed. Her shoulders sagged slightly just for a moment. What do you want? I thought about that carefully. I want you to understand, I said, that systems don't care about comfort. They care about accuracy. She stared at me, searching for the daughter who used to bend. She didn't find her. When she left, she didn't say goodbye. I closed the door and felt something settle deep in my chest. The unraveling had begun. The third email changed everything. It wasn't from compliance, it was from a donor's legal counsel. Subject clarification regarding restricted funds. I read it slowly, my pulse steady, my mind already connecting threads. They were asking why funds earmarked for elder housing initiatives had been reallocated to administrative expenses. They cited internal records that had been approved verbally years ago. Records I had flagged as risky and temporarily corrected until proper amendments were secured. Amendments my parents had never finalized, because they assumed I would handle it, because I always did. I forwarded the email to Rachel, the attorney I trusted beyond anyone else. Her response was immediate. They're exposed, she wrote, and whoever is signing off now is assuming personal liability. I didn't reply. I already knew who that was. Claire. That afternoon my mother called again. Her voice was different this time, not angry, afraid. The donor's lawyer contacted us, she said. Claire says it's a misunderstanding. It isn't, I replied. She says the funds were used appropriately, my mother insisted. Appropriate and permitted are not the same thing, I said. My mother's breath hitched. Can you fix it? I paused. Do you want the truth, I asked. Yes, she whispered. You can't retroactively justify restricted fund misuse, I said. You can only disclose and correct. And that means, she asked. Oversight, I replied. Penalties, possibly public notice. She made a small sound, almost a sob. Claire didn't tell us this, she said. No, I agreed. She wouldn't have known. Silence stretched between us. Why didn't you warn us sooner, my mother asked finally. I did, I said. You just didn't like how it felt. That night, Daniel texted me. She's blaming Claire now. I closed my eyes. That was inevitable. People like my mother didn't take responsibility. They reassigned it. The next morning, the foundation received formal notice of investigation. Not a review. An investigation. My father called me at 9:17. We need you, he said simply. I leaned back in my chair, looking out at the quiet street below. You needed me before, I said. Now you need the truth. What do we do, he asked. You tell them everything, I replied. And you stop pretending control is the same as competence. He was silent. And Claire, he asked. I answered honestly. She's already in it. After the call, I felt no triumph, only clarity. This wasn't about revenge. This was about gravity. I had stepped out of the way, and everything that had been leaning on me was finally falling under its own weight. By the time the foundation's board meeting was scheduled, the tone inside my family had shifted from panic to survival. Panic was emotional. Survival was strategic. And strategy in my mother's mind always required a scapegoat. Her name was Claire. I found that out not because anyone told me, but because patterns repeat when pressure is applied. Emails stopped mentioning her by name. Conversations grew vague. Phrases like miscommunication and unauthorized initiative began to appear where certainty once lived. On a gray Thursday morning, I received an email forwarded accidentally by Daniel. It was from my mother to a board member. The recent discrepancies appear to stem from guidance provided by an external helper who exceeded her role. We are taking steps to correct this. External helper. No mention of who had granted authority, no acknowledgement of oversight, no ownership, just distance. I closed the message and leaned back in my chair. They were doing what they always did. When something worked, they absorbed credit. When something broke, they exported blame. Only this time, the system was watching. The board meeting was held via video conference. I wasn't invited. Officially, I had no role anymore. Unofficially, half the attendees knew my name better than Claire's. Rachel attended as an observer. She called me afterward. "They're unraveling," she said, "and they're panicking." "How so?" I asked. "They tried to frame Claire as a temporary contractor who acted without sufficient supervision," Rachel replied, "but the documentation doesn't support that." "Because it can't," I said. "They signed off on everything," she continued, "your mother especially." I exhaled slowly. "And Claire?" I asked. "She's confused," Rachel said, "and scared. She thought she was helping. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. That afternoon my mother called. "Evelyn," she said, voice syrupy with restraint. "We need to talk." "We've been talking," I replied. "You just didn't like what I said." "This isn't the time for bitterness," she snapped. "This is serious." "It's always serious when consequences arrive," I said. She ignored that. "Claire made mistakes. You put her in a position she wasn't qualified for," I replied. "That's not a mistake. That's negligence." "You don't understand how overwhelmed we were," my mother shot back. I laughed once quietly. "I understand exactly. I lived there." Silence followed. Then softer, "Can you step in just temporarily, to stabilize things?" There it was. The ask. The old script. "You removed my access," I said. Publicly, deliberately. That was about boundaries, she insisted. "And this is about liability," I replied. "Those are not the same." "You'd let this destroy us?" she asked. I chose my words carefully. "I won't destroy myself to protect you." Her breath caught. I could hear it. "You're cold," she whispered. "No," I said. "I'm done." She hung up. That evening, Claire emailed me directly. Subject: I think I messed up. The message was long, apologetic, confused. She explained that she had trusted what my parents told her, that she believed everything had been reviewed, approved, settled. She hadn't known about donor restrictions or prior corrective actions. She wrote, "I didn't know I was stepping into something unfinished." I read it twice. Then I replied, "You didn't step into something unfinished," I wrote. "You stepped into something being held together by someone you replaced." She responded almost immediately, "Can you help me?" I stared at the screen. This was the moment. Not the courtroom, not the investigation. This. I typed slowly. "I can tell the truth," I wrote, "but I won't protect lies." She didn't respond after that. The next morning, the investigation escalated. Formal interviews, individual liability notices, requests for sworn statements. My parents' names appeared prominently. Claire's did too. And for the first time, the family dynamic I had survived my entire life was no longer insulated by familiarity. It was exposed to law, and law does not negotiate with denial. Claire came to see me on a Sunday afternoon. I recognized her car before I recognized her face. She parked hesitantly, as if unsure whether she was allowed to be there. When she knocked, her posture was stiff, her confidence stripped away by reality. I opened the door and stepped aside without a word. She sat on the edge of my couch, hands folded tightly in her lap. Up close, she looked younger, not naive, unprepared. "They told me you'd be angry," she said quietly. "I'm not," I replied. She looked surprised. "You should be." I said before. She nodded slowly. "They said everything was handled, that you were controlling." I smiled faintly. That's what people say when someone else is preventing disasters they don't see. Her eyes filled. "They're blaming me." "Yes," I said. "They always need someone." "They said I overstepped," she continued, "that I acted independently." I met her gaze. "Did you?" She shook her head immediately. "No. I followed instructions. I asked questions. I was told not to worry. I believed her. That was the most dangerous part." "I don't want to go down for this," she whispered. "Then don't lie," I replied. Her voice trembled. "If I tell the truth, they'll destroy me." I leaned back, folding my arms. "They already tried." She swallowed hard. "What would you do?" she asked. I didn't answer right away. "I would tell the truth," I said finally, "and accept whatever comes from it, because the alternative is carrying someone else's guilt forever." She nodded slowly, like someone absorbing a truth too late. "They're asking me to sign a statement," she said, "one that says I misunderstood my role." "Don't," I said. She looked at me sharply. "Why?" "Because that becomes your lie," I replied, "and lies are sticky." She closed her eyes. "I never wanted to replace you," she said softly. "I believe that too." "Intent doesn't change impact," I replied, "but honesty changes outcomes." When she left, I felt something shift. Not victory, alignment. 2 days later, Claire submitted her statement. She told the truth. About who instructed her, about who approved decisions, about who reassured her not to worry. The fallout was immediate. My parents' legal counsel withdrew. Board members resigned. The foundation's accounts were frozen pending resolution. Daniel called me in a panic. She told them everything he said. Yes, I replied. You set her up, he accused. No, I said calmly. I stopped protecting lies. That night my father called. Not angry. Broken. We should have listened to you, he said. I closed my eyes. You should have respected me, I replied. Listening would have followed. Silence stretched between us. We don't know how to fix this, he admitted. You don't, I agreed. That's why you hired people who do. When the call ended, I sat alone in my living room, heart steady. The system was no longer leaning on me. It was correcting itself. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for the next crisis. I was watching the truth finish what it had started. The first public consequence landed on a Monday morning, quiet but unmistakable. I knew something had shifted before I even opened my email. The usual background noise of alerts and updates was gone, replaced by a single message sitting alone at the top of my inbox. Notice of temporary suspension of operations. The foundation's letterhead looked unfamiliar without my fingerprints on it. Cold, formal, final. I read it carefully. The board had voted to suspend all grant distributions pending the outcome of the investigation. Accounts frozen. Authority transferred to an external administrator. No mention of names, no accusations. Just action. Systems rarely shout. They simply move. My phone rang less than 5 minutes later. Daniel. They shut it down, he said, breathless. Everything. Yes, I replied. This is bad, he continued. People are calling. Donors, the press. Yes, I said again. You could still help, he said, desperation creeping into his voice. You know how to talk to them. I closed my eyes slowly. Daniel, they didn't ask me to talk. They asked me to leave. That was Mom, he snapped. You know how she is. I know exactly how she is, I replied. That's why this happened. He exhaled sharply. She's not handling it well. I'm sure, I said. That afternoon, the first article appeared online. It wasn't sensational. No photos, no speculation, just facts, an investigation, a pause, questions pending. The family name appeared once buried in the third paragraph. That was all it took. By evening, my parents' social circle had gone quiet. Invitations rescinded, calls unanswered. The kind of silence that spoke louder than confrontation ever could. My mother called that night. I almost didn't answer. Almost. Evelyn, she said, and her voice was unrecognizable. Thin, shaken. They've turned on us. No, I replied gently. They stepped back. She scoffed weakly. Everyone is acting like we're criminals. No one has said that, I replied. They're acting like professionals. She swallowed. Claire betrayed us. Claire told the truth, I said. There's a difference. You poisoned her, my mother whispered. I felt something tighten in my chest. Not anger, but exhaustion. You did, I replied. When you taught her loyalty mattered more than accuracy. Silence stretched. They're saying we may be personally liable, she said finally. Yes, I replied. That's how authority works. Her voice cracked. You knew this would happen. Yes, I said. Why didn't you stop it, she asked. The question hung between us, heavy with history. Because I said carefully stopping it would have required lying, and I won't do that anymore. She began to cry then. Not theatrically, not performatively. Real quiet sobs that made my throat tighten despite myself. I gave everything to this family, she said. I closed my eyes. So did I. She didn't respond. When the call ended, I sat in the dark for a long time. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel cruel. I felt finished. The next day, Claire was formally cleared of wrongdoing. Her statement, corroborated by documentation, had shifted responsibility exactly where it belonged. She called me afterward, her voice steadier than the last time we spoke. They're letting me go, she said. No charges, no penalties. I'm glad, I replied. I'm sorry, she said again, for everything. I know, I said. And for the first time, I meant it without reservation. That evening, Rachel called. They want to talk to you, she said. Who, I asked. The investigators, she replied. They want to understand why you stepped away when you did. I smiled faintly. Do they? Yes, she said, because it changed everything. I agreed to the interview, not to defend myself, to tell the truth. The interview took place in a plain conference room downtown, all neutral colors and quiet efficiency. 2 investigators sat across from me, a recorder placed neatly between us. They didn't smile. They didn't intimidate. They simply waited. Why did you withdraw from your role? One of them asked. I didn't answer right away. Because, I said slowly, continuing, would have required me to carry responsibility without authority. They nodded. And why is that a problem? The other asked. Because responsibility without authority creates blind spots, I replied. And blind spots create harm. They exchanged a glance. Did you anticipate the investigation? The first asked. Yes, I said. Did you initiate it? The second asked. No, I replied. I allowed it. They let that sit. I explained everything then. The years of quiet corrections, the unfiled amendments, the way I had buffered risk without formal acknowledgement, the moment my access was removed and my role dismissed as unnecessary. When someone tells you they no longer need your protection, I said, you believe them. The recorder clicked softly as it continued to capture every word. When the interview ended, one of them looked at me carefully. You understand, he said, that stepping in now could mitigate some consequences for your parents. Yes, I replied. Why haven't you, he asked. I considered the question honestly. Because mitigation isn't accountability, I said. It's postponement. He nodded slowly. That night, my father came to see me. He looked older than I remembered. Smaller, like the version of him that existed without my silent support. We're selling the house, he said quietly. I nodded. That makes sense. Your mother thinks you hate her, he continued. I looked at him gently. I don't hate her. I stopped orbiting her. He sighed heavily. She doesn't know how to live without control. That's not my failure, I replied. He nodded, eyes wet. I know. He hesitated. If you stepped in just once, you could soften the outcome. I met his gaze, and teach her that if she pushes hard enough, I'll return. He looked away. I can't do that, I said. I understand, he whispered. When he left, I felt the final thread snap. Not violently, cleanly. The following week, the final report was issued. Mismanagement confirmed. Authority failures documented. Corrective measures enforced. The foundation would reopen under new leadership. The family name would remain but stripped of control. My parents were fined, publicly, permanently. I read the report once, then closed it. The revenge people imagine is loud, explosive, satisfying in the moment. This wasn't that. This was quieter. This was the sound of gravity doing what gravity always does when you stop holding something up. And for the first time in my life, I felt truly, unmistakably free. Freedom, I learned, is not a rush of joy. It is a strange, disorienting quiet that arrives after the noise finally stops. In the weeks following the report, my life did not explode into something new. It settled. And that settling forced me to face a question I had avoided for most of my adult life. Who am I when no one needs me to hold them together? The foundation's reopening was announced quietly. New leadership, external oversight. The Moore name remained on the letterhead, but it felt hollow now, like a relic preserved behind glass. My parents no longer attended board functions. Their social circle thinned rapidly. People who once praised their generosity now spoke carefully, politely from a distance. Reputation doesn't vanish overnight. It erodes. Daniel stopped calling as often. When he did, his voice carried a resentment he didn't bother to hide. You could have saved them, he said during one tense conversation. I saved myself, I replied. That's not the same thing, he snapped. No, I agreed. It's better. My mother didn't call at all. Instead, she sent letters. Actual letters written in her careful handwriting, each one an attempt to rewrite history. In them she described misunderstandings, betrayals, the cruelty of systems that punished good intentions. In none of them did she acknowledge choice. I read the first two. I didn't read the rest. At work, my life expanded in ways I hadn't anticipated. Without the constant background pressure of family emergencies, my mind sharpened. I was promoted within 6 months. Not because I worked harder, but because my work was no longer diluted by fear. One afternoon, my supervisor pulled me aside. You're different, she said. Lighter? I smiled faintly. I stopped carrying something that wasn't mine. That night, Claire called me. She had taken a position at a small nonprofit in another state. A fresh start, she said. Real oversight, clear boundaries. I think I needed this, she admitted. I confused belonging with obedience. I understood that more deeply than I wanted to. You'll be fine, I told her, and I meant it. Late that evening, my father called. He hadn't contacted me in weeks. We sold the house, he said quietly. I closed my eyes. That house had been the center of gravity for my entire childhood. Every rule, every silence, every unspoken expectation. I hope you're okay, I said. He hesitated. Your mother isn't. I waited. She says she doesn't recognize you anymore, he continued. I looked out the window at the city lights, steady and indifferent. She never did, I replied. There was a long pause. I'm sorry, he said. Not defensively, not performatively. Simply. I know, I replied. After we hung up, I sat alone and felt something unexpected. Grief. Not for what I lost, for what I never had. A family that could tolerate truth. A mother who could love without control. A place where responsibility wasn't a transaction. I let myself feel it fully without trying to fix it. That was new too. Weeks later, a final letter arrived from the oversight office. The case was officially closed. No further action required. No lingering obligations. I placed it in a drawer and didn't think about it again. The story everyone expected to end in confrontation had dissolved instead into distance. And in that distance, I found something I had never been allowed to have before: choice. The real ending didn't arrive with a verdict or a phone call. It arrived on a random Wednesday morning while I was standing in line at a bakery near my office. The woman in front of me, maybe in her early 60s, was talking to the cashier about her adult son. "He says I'm selfish for not fixing everything for him anymore," she said, laughing softly. "But I'm tired." Something in her voice made my chest tighten. Enough is enough, I thought. Not when you explode, when you stop. That afternoon, I received one final message from my mother. Not a letter this time, a text. "I don't understand how you could do this to your family." I stared at the screen for a long time before typing back. "I didn't do this to my family, I stopped doing it for them." She didn't respond. I didn't expect her to. That evening, I went for a long walk along the harbor. The water was calm, reflecting the last light of day. I thought about the years I had spent preparing for disasters that never came, and the one disaster I had survived simply by stepping aside. People think revenge looks like fire, but sometimes it looks like restraint. It looks like refusing to lie. It looks like letting consequences land. It looks like choosing dignity over approval. I didn't destroy my family. I stopped saving them from themselves. And in doing so, I saved the only person I was ever truly responsible for: myself. If you're listening to this and recognizing your own story in it, in the quiet burden of being the capable one, the fixer, the reliable daughter, no one protects, hear this clearly. You are not cruel for stepping back. You are not selfish for choosing peace. You are not obligated to carry what others refuse to confront. Sometimes the most powerful act of revenge isn't exposure or punishment. It's withdrawal. If this story spoke to you, share your thoughts in the comments. Like the video if it resonated with your experience. Subscribe for more stories about family truth and reclaiming your life. Because the moment you stop holding everything together, you finally give yourself permission to live. I thought the quiet would last forever. That once the case closed and the foundation stabilized under new leadership, my family would fade into the background of my life like an old photograph you stop noticing on the wall. I underestimated how hard people cling to old power when it's the only thing that ever made them feel whole. The call came on a Sunday evening just as I was finishing dinner. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, almost. "Evelyn," my mother said, her voice brittle, stripped of its usual authority. "I need you." The words hit me harder than any accusation she had ever thrown. Not because they were urgent, but because they were familiar. They were the words she had used my entire life when she wanted me to abandon myself and step back into position. "What's wrong?" I asked carefully. "There's been a meeting," she said, "about the foundation, about the name." I closed my eyes. "What about it?" I asked. "They're discussing removing our family name entirely," she said, her voice trembling. "They say it's cleaner, less controversial." Cleaner. That word again. The same one she had used when she replaced me. The same one that had cost her everything. And I said, "And I told them no," she replied quickly. "I told them the name matters, that it's our legacy." I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. "Legacy isn't a word," I said. "It's behavior." She ignored that. "They want a statement from you." I went very still. "They want you to publicly affirm that the foundation reflects our values," she continued. "If you do that, they'll reconsider." There it was. Not an apology, not accountability, a request for my credibility. They had lost theirs. "What did you tell them?" I asked. "That I'd speak to you," she said. "That you'd understand." I felt something inside me go cold and clear. "You don't get to use me as proof of integrity," I said. "Not anymore." Her breath caught sharply. "You're punishing us." "No," I replied. "I'm refusing to lie." "If you loved this family," she began. "I did," I said. "I loved it enough to carry it when you wouldn't. That doesn't obligate me to save its image now." Silence stretched between us, thick and heavy. "You're destroying what's left," she whispered. I answered honestly. "What's left is what survives the truth." She started to cry then, openly, without restraint. The sound used to unnerve me, used to pull me back into alignment. This time it didn't. "I can't do this for you," I said gently, "and I won't." When the call ended, my hands were steady, my heart rate normal, the familiar guilt never arrived. That was when I knew the cycle had finally broken. 2 days later, the announcement was made. The foundation would continue under a new name. The Moore name was officially removed. No scandal, no drama, just a press release and a quiet shift in branding. My mother didn't call again. Neither did my father. And for the first time, the silence felt permanent. The last thing to change was the thing I least expected: me. It happened slowly, without ceremony. One morning I woke up and realized I hadn't thought about my family in days. Not in anger, not in vigilance, not even in sadness. They had become context instead of content. That afternoon I met a friend for lunch, someone who had known me through the worst of it. Halfway through the meal, she studied me carefully. "You're different," she said. "You don't flinch anymore." I smiled. "I don't have to." At work, I was asked to lead a new initiative. High visibility, high trust. The kind of role that would have terrified me once when my energy was divided between my own responsibilities and everyone else's emergencies. I accepted without hesitation, not because I needed to prove anything, because I wanted it. Weeks later, a small envelope arrived in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single photograph. The old house in Hartford, empty, for sale sign in the yard, windows dark. On the back in my father's handwriting were 3 words. "I hope you're well." I held the photo for a long moment, then placed it in a drawer and closed it. I didn't need closure from them. I had built it myself. One evening, walking home as the city settled into night, I passed a woman standing on a sidewalk, arguing softly into her phone. "I can't fix this for you anymore," she said, her voice shaking but firm. "You'll have to handle it yourself." She ended the call and stood there breathing like someone who had just stepped off a cliff and discovered solid ground beneath her feet. I recognized that moment. It was the moment everything changes. People think revenge is about seeing someone else suffer, about balance restored through pain. But the truth is quieter. Revenge is reclaiming your labor. Revenge is refusing to be the solution to problems designed to keep you trapped. Revenge is choosing yourself without apology. I didn't win against my family. I outgrew them. And in doing so, I finally stepped into a life that was mine, not because I earned it through sacrifice, but because I stopped surrendering it. If this story felt familiar, if you've been the responsible one, the invisible backbone, the person everyone depends on, but no one protects, remember this. You are allowed to stop. You are allowed to step back. You are allowed to let consequences teach the lessons you were never meant to carry. Sometimes the most powerful ending isn't reconciliation. It's release. If this story resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments. Like the video if it spoke to your experience. Subscribe for more true stories about family truth and reclaiming your life. Because the moment you stop holding everything together, you finally begin to live.